Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 13 of our Salesforce admin training. And today we're going to start a new area of Salesforce, which is very important. We're going to be talking about or learning about workflow and process automation. Workflow and process automation is what makes Salesforce unique. The reason why workflow and process automation makes Salesforce unique is it helps people or users of Salesforce to automatically program the org without having to write any code. What do I mean by that? If you want to update a field, you want the Salesforce to do something, you can actually program it without having to write a single line of code. This is what Salesforce refers to as declarative programming. Okay? Declarative programming meaning you only have to click, tell the computer what to do, and it does that. You don't have to write any single line of code. You're going to see how it works in tonight's class. And this covers about 16% of your certification exams. For you that you're writing this, previously it used to be 8%. So when Salesforce updated their Salesforce admin, they increased the percentage of process and workflow automation to 16%, meaning if you're going to be writing the exam, you'll see more of these questions. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time on this. And I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make sure you understand every little bit of process automation. It can be very challenging, but it is rewarding because this is the future of Salesforce. Eventually, all those user creation might be automated. Anytime you want to create a user, you can automate it. How are you going to do that? This is how you're going to do that. This lecture and in the next couple of days would ensure you have the tools that can help you. So please pay attention, and hopefully at the end of the lessons, you will be able to work with Salesforce. So I like working with bullet points, and these are the things we're going to cover. As you can see, it's very straightforward. It's very easy in terms of areas to focus on, but each and every bullet point covers a lot of information. And I would really appreciate if you guys can also study outside of the class and take some trailer, because this is very important. I cannot overemphasize this, okay? So please try your best. So without wasting much of the time, let's go into the trailer and start doing one or two things. If you're just joining us for the first time, which I really doubt, this is trailer, and this is where you get started. You go to login if you have an account. If you don't have an account, you sign up. I already have an account, and I logged into my Salesforce. As you can see, you get points whenever you take some of the trails, and you get badges. You need to finish a trail before you can get a badge for that trail. So I go to my hands-on hogs where I get to have series of playground. I was working on my certificate maintenance today, so I was doing some work in my playground. But we're going to go to the Black Force training. I click on launch, and we get a brand new org. So today, we get an org that we've already used previously. Today, we're going to be learning about process automation in Salesforce. So what are the expectations? Ability to identify different process automation to use when you have a business requirement. In Salesforce, we have several automation process automation. One of the process automation we have is workflow. What is a workflow? I'm going to explain that to you very soon. We have workflow rules. Workflow rules helps you to automate a process. We also have what they call process builder. Process builder also helps you to automate a process. Remember, the whole objective is to automate things behind the scene. You've seen assignment rule, you've seen escalation rule, you've seen a lot of things. Those are rules, fair enough. But now we're talking about automation. What should happen when I create a lead record? What should happen when I create an account record and it matches a particular criteria? Previously, we have the standard object that helps us to achieve that. But those are assignment rules, assigning to a particular user. Okay? But now we want to do more than just assignment rule. We want to do more than just auto response rule. We want to do more than that. How do we go about it? We use automation. So I said earlier, we have what they call the workflow rules. The workflow rules helps you to automate a process. Okay, this is the workflow rules. You go to the quick find, and you go to workflow rules. We also have what they call the process builder. The process builder helps you to automate. Can you see it's under process automation? We also have what they call the flow. The flow is very, very powerful. It is under process automation. So remember, I've just told you 3 process automation tools, which you're going to use very often. There is also what they call the approval process. The approval process is also a process automation, which we are going to explain in our lessons. So let's start with workflow. So what are workflow rules? Workflow rules are an example of a process automation. Workflow rules can be used for automating simple business processes, such as sending an email. You want to send an email alert. You can use workflow rule. The things you can do with workflow rules are creating of task, sending an email alert, field updates, and outbound messages. You can use workflow rules to create a new task. Let's say, for instance, whenever a lead is created into the system and the lead has some information or criteria we want to check. For instance, the lead status is open, not contacted. I want to send an email alert to a particular user in my business to handle this lead. Alternatively, you have a case. Whenever a case is created and the subject is urgent, I want to do what? Create a new task. Okay, workflow rule can be used to create a new task. What are tasks? You already know what tasks are. Tasks are just plain, when you're working in an industry, you're given an assignment or you're given a task to do. That's tasks in Salesforce, okay? So tasks are just normal task that has start dates, end dates, due dates, priority, and the likes. That's tasks, okay? So now, workflow rule can be used to do 4 things. Workflow rule can be used to do 4 things. Workflow rule can be used to send tasks. Workflow rule can be used to send an email alerts. Workflow rule can be used to update a field. What do I mean by that? Whenever you create a lead, I'm using lead for an example, okay? It could be anything. Let's say opportunities. Whenever you create an opportunities and the status change to close, you can update a field on the opportunity object. For instance, if I have the opportunity status to be closed, I might want to update order number, or I might want to update whether it's private or public. I might want to update a field within the opportunity object. So workflow rules can help you to update a field. Lastly, what workflow rule can help you to send outbound messages. I'm going to explain what outbound messages are, so don't worry about that, okay? So just remember that. Remember that. Yesterday, I also talked about order of execution. Order of execution is very important when it comes to process automation. The reason why the order of execution is important is because if you update a web, for instance, a field, and there is another process in place to update something, and if there is another process in place to update, let's say you have this field called private. There's a workflow rule that says update private whenever the amount is greater than $1 million. There's another rule in place that sends a message and update private to uncheck. And now, whenever there is a workflow rule, something happens and you constantly update private to be checked and update private to be unchecked. So the order of execution determines whether workflow rules comes first or assignment rules come after and the likes. But when you're writing or when you're developing your business logic, you have to put that into consideration, because you can get lost in your business process. And you have to discuss with business saying, we have an action under this object. This could be conflicting with an existing action that we have in place. So always do your analysis before you implement a workflow rule. So I'm going to go back to order of execution shortly, but let's go back to workflow rule and do some case study. The first thing I said is workflow rule can be used to create a task. Workflow rule can be used to send an email. Workflow rule can be used to update a field. And workflow rule can be used to send outbound messages. Now, let's see an example of workflow rule. I'm going to say, continue. How do you create a workflow rule? Just like every other rule in Salesforce, you have to create a new rule. And you will select the object of interest. The object of interest is what the workflow rule will be listening to. For instance, if you want to create a workflow rule on opportunity object, then you select opportunity. Okay, so you have to select object of interest. Workflow rule can only address objects which you've selected. So you cannot select opportunity and say, I want to make sure that a contact is updated. It doesn't work that way. So if you're selecting opportunity, the only thing you can do is send email within opportunity. Create, update a field within opportunity object. Okay, so if you select the account object, for instance, then whatever you want to do will be related to the account object. So let's start with the account object. And I click on next. So what's my business requirement? My business requirement is this. I want to send an email to my manager whenever the annual revenue of a new account that is being created is greater than $1 million. So the rule name will be check annual revenue, or you can just say annual revenue check. Okay, so that's the rule name I'm creating. Now, before a workflow rule can be executed, you need to evaluate a rule criteria. The rule criteria determines when a workflow rule will be executed. Remember, I told you about order of execution. So this is where you kind of like start doing your analysis and find out when you want this workflow rule to take place. Okay? You want it to be either whenever the record is created, meaning if I go to account objects and I click on new and I create an account, whenever a record is created. A workflow rule can be triggered whenever a record is created. I'm going to explain what this means shortly. A workflow rule can be triggered whenever a record is created and every time it is edited. What do I mean by that? I create a new record, it meets a criteria, it executes the workflow rule. I edit the record, it meets the criteria, it executes the workflow rule. So workflow rule can be executed whenever you create a new record in the system and it meets the rule criteria. It can also be executed whenever you create and every time it is edited and it meets this criteria. And the last one is whenever it's created and anytime it's edited to subsequently meet criteria. So the difference between this and this is this will check whenever it is edited, whereas this will check whenever it is edited and subsequently meet criteria. So let me explain everything. Let's start with the basic one. Whenever it is created, I want to check the annual revenue of the account record that I am creating. Whenever it is greater than $1 million, I want to send an email alert. So I'm going to put greater than $1 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I save and I go next. So now you need to specify action. Remember, you've created a rule. The rule is whenever you've created an account record. The criteria is if the account record annual revenue is greater than $1 million. I want to do something. What do I want to do? I have 4 options. The 4 options are, I can either create a new task, I can send an email alert, I can update a field within that object, or I can send outbound messages. You also have the option of selecting an existing action, which obviously still going to be either of these 4 actions. Okay, so let's do a very basic one. I want to create a new task. I want a new task to be created anytime the annual revenue is greater than $1 million. So who should own this task? That's the assigned task. For instance, if you go to the task objects, this is a task object. If you go to the task object, for instance, assigned to, that's what it is asking you here right now. Assigned to, who should own this task? Subjects, what should the subject be? And the due date. Everything that you can see on this task object is what you are about to fill. This is what they call automation. So you don't have to create a new task manually. You will automate the task whenever the annual revenue is greater than $1 million. So I'm going to give an example. I'm going to assign this task to test user. And I'm going to say, we have a high value client. Okay? And the due date, you can determine what the due date is. It could be the created date plus 7 days. Okay? Then you determine the status of the task, not started. And you can determine the priority. Because it's high value customer, I will set at high value. Okay? Then you can put a comment if you want to put a comment on the task. Okay? So now that we have that, I save. I don't need to create a new task. I just cancel. Okay? So now we have this. Remember, I go to workflow rules. Then I created a new workflow, a new rule. that says annual revenue check. Once I have that, I said whenever a record is created on the account objects and the annual revenue is greater than $1 million, I want to create a new task called we have a high value client as a description. Then I activate this workflow rule. I've created an automation. Next time your manager said, I need to know every time we have a client that is paying us that has an annual revenue of $1 million. You don't have to constantly look for that client in the system. Anytime you create that record, it will be automated. The email will be sent to your manager. So now I'm going to test this. I'm going to say sample high value clients. I'm going to put some random stuff here. The most important here is annual revenue, okay? So I have 3 zeros. So this is 1.2 million. Then the business type, premium. Then I just click on save. Remember, the workflow rule says whenever the revenue is greater than $1 million, I need a new task to be created. So I refresh this. I go to all today's tasks, maybe. We do not have any task. Let me refresh this.
The currency is I think it's pounds on what you created.
Sorry, the currency?
Yes.
Annual revenue check. Oh, this is CAD, and that was,
yeah.
Yeah, but it should still have it. Let me see. High value customer. Sorry, high value.
21.
So which is greater? Is it euro or that's strange. But let me create a new one and just put some high value so we can differentiate. High value 2. Okay, high value 2. Then I'm gonna put 500. I believe this should be okay. For some reason, I don't know why.
Can you change the currency just to match what's on the other one?
So where's the currency? Let me bring the currency to the view. Okay, give me 1 minute. Go to setup. Go to object manager. Go to account. Go to fusion relationship. Go to currency. Currency. This is just a code. Company information. This is what happens when you set dynamic currency, right? You have 2 currency in the system. So corporate currency is this, and I can just go to manage currency, advanced currency, disabled. So I just disabled the advanced currency. That's number 1. Then I can just deactivate this. So I can just have a standard currency to work with. Okay, so now I should be good when it comes to the money in the system. So it's very consistent. So we're working with card right now. Okay, so let me try again. I go to clients, I type in high value, customer 2. Okay, and I have annual revenue of 5 million. Okay, then I have business type premium. That's not a problem. Then save. Okay. So now that we've created that, but remember, we're checking the annual revenue.
The task is by the right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a new task here. We have 5 value points.
It's okay, guys. Let's carry on, please. It's okay. Thanks. So we have the annual revenue to be $5 million. And the workflow rule says, create a new task anytime we create a record and the annual revenue is greater than 1 million CAD. So when we create a new account, the annual revenue is $5 million. A new task was automatically created for us. And this new task is the same task we have specified here. We have high-value clients. Okay? That's the task that was created. And the due date for this task is 7 days from today. Today is 18, plus 7 is 25. The priority is high. Everything we specify in the task is now being created automatically. This is how you create a new, this is how you develop a process automation for your business, creating new tasks and stuff. This is the first example. The second example we want to test is another criteria. Let's go to new rule. I will still use account objects, but I want to do something else. I want to check annual revenue again. Check annual revenue 2. But I want to use a different rule criteria, evaluation criteria. Remember, the first one says created. The second one says created every time, and every time it is edited. And the third one says created and anytime it's edited to subsequently meet criteria. So the first one will just be triggered once and that's it. Meaning that if I go back to this account, if I go to recently viewed to see the recently viewed high value customer 2, you know, the annual revenue is 5 million. Now, if I change the annual revenue to 500 and I save, meaning that I have edited this account, a new task is not created. That is what this means. Created, and that's it. The workflow rule will only run once, trigger once when the record is first created. So if you update it, it will not run. Okay? So remember this. Now we're going to check another option that says created and every time it is edited. Created and every time it is edited. As you can see, there is an alert. Can you meet, please? There is an alert that Salesforce is telling you, you cannot add time-dependent workflow actions with this option. I will tell you what that means shortly, okay? But now, this option number 2 for our evaluation criteria, created and every time it is edited. Again, I want to use the annual revenue because it's a very good one to check. I want to use greater than or equal to $1 million, okay? 1, 2, 3. 3 and 3. $1 million, save and next. So this rule says annual revenue greater than $1 million. And every time it is created and edited, meaning that when I first create this and when I edit what I have created, it will still run. The question is, what action do you want it to take place? The action you want to take place is send an email to my manager. I want to send an email to my manager that we have a high-value customer in the system. Description, high-value customer email. Okay, high value customer email, and I will select a template. Remember, you needed to have created your own templates. You don't just send any random templates. You would have created your own templates, then you use the template in your new email alerts. The option is user, account owner, because you're using the account objects, account team, case team, creator, email field, opportunity teams, and the likes. Let's test with user first, then I'll show you how to use other options. Test user. You have the option to specify additional emails. So if you have 5 managers, and if these managers don't have Salesforce license, you can specify additional emails for users that are not in the system. Okay, you have up to 5 email addresses you can add to the CC. Then you save. Remember, we are checking rule criteria, annual revenue greater than or equal to $1 million. Evaluation criteria, every time we create it and every time it is edited. Okay, so I click on done. And most importantly, I need to activate the workflow rule. If I do not activate the workflow rule, it will not send that email. Okay, so now that I have that, I can now go back to my system and create a new account. And I say I value account 3. Then I specify again, you don't have to do this because this is a custom field we created, but the more important thing is this, okay? $5 million. And I save. Now that I have created it, it obviously created the task because, one, our previous workflow rule is still active. This first workflow rule is still active. So the automation for creating tasks is done. And number 2, we needed to have sent an email, okay? We needed to have sent an email. And if I refresh my email, I can see the email. Okay, this is not the email. Just 1 minute, let me check. What email address is test user using? Users. This is test user, okay? And I have let me check that, okay? Just give me 1 minute. Workflow rules. Check annual 2, and it's sending email. And this is the email. Recipient is user test user from website, created, modified. That's fine. 1 million. Okay. So we should probably get an email, but sometimes it takes some time, but we should. But let me test again, okay? Let me check. Let me check again with a new account. I'll just say new, next. I value 4. I want to put the revenue as something more. So I know definitely it's not the annual. Then business type is that. And I save, okay? I expect it to test and we have it active. So just give me 1 minute. I wanted to actually use a different user for that. Workflow rules, high value, edits. I will use this. So I'll send it to both my email and let's see if I can just making sure that we have those emails present. Okay. And I can specify something that is very plain. Again, you have to have created your templates. Just don't use any template you have there. You need to have created your templates. Then I have that, and I make sure that my workflow rule is active. Okay, so let me just try that again and see premium. Then we have annual revenue, just I, to give us that email. Save. Okay, client name. Save. Okay, the first task and the first is working fine. Okay, but the other email alert is what I'm looking for, but I haven't gotten that. But let me carry on, and I will show you. If I get the email, I will show you, and if I don't get it, I will let you know. Okay, so that's for sending email alerts. But again, the most important thing is this. I wanted to show you when I edit this I value, we are not going to get a new task created. Okay, it's still going to be this workflow rule says, let me check. This workflow rule says every time is created and every time is edited, but the action is just to send an email. But the first one says create a task, but every time is created. So obviously my expectation is we shouldn't have a new task being created. Okay, so I'll just kind of like put a random number, save. I'm not getting a new task, which is fine. But I can go back again and edit our first workflow rule, which says only when it's created. But right now, I want to change the criteria to every time it's created and edited. Okay, save. And it's active, so that's fine. So if I go back to the first I value customer I created, which is obviously, I don't even need that, but I just want to go back to the I value customer I created previously, which is this, and we got a task. But right now, I want to edit and making sure that we have this, save. It's creating a new task. Okay, so every time it's created and edited, is working fine. The email is not working for some reason, but this is working fine. Okay, so now this is when you select every time you create a new record and the record is edited. The other option is whenever you create and anytime it's edited to subsequently meet criteria. So let me just pop up what Salesforce has to say regarding this. It says the rule is evaluated when a record is created and when a record that doesn't meet criteria is edited to meet criteria. Meaning that previously, if you have $500 here, you're not going to get a new task to be created because $500 does not meet the criteria of I value customer. However, if you now edit and it is $5 million, the task will be created. So if you view more, you will see another task created. That is what that rule is saying. So understand the evaluation criteria for workflow rule and know how to use the criteria. Remember, every time it is created, every time it is created and every time it's edited, every time created and anytime it's edited to subsequently meet criteria. So an example for this would be maybe initially they declare annual revenue of $1 million last year, but now they've done better in business and their annual revenue is now maybe $10 million. So that's when it's going to send an email or create a new task. So this is workflow rule. This is a very simple example of workflow rule. Remember, workflow rule can send an email can update a field, can create a new task, and can send outbound messages. In your certification exams, you'll be asked, the manager wants to send an outbound message. You select workflow rules because workflow rules can send outbound messages. What are outbound messages? Outbound messages are messages you send to a different system from Salesforce. Let me show you what that means. I'll just show you because we cannot demonstrate it, but I'll show you what it means. I select an account object. I click on next. Again, we don't have to constantly create a new rule. We can just go to an existing rule and just add additional action to that rule. So what does that mean? Previously, I have task. I can just say, I want to send an email. I can say, I want to send outbound messages as part of those actions. So I don't have to constantly create a new rule because I want to create a workflow rule. If you're still using the same evaluation criteria, then you can do as many actions as possible. So by outbound messages, I mean, you can pass all this information in your account records. You can send it to an external URL, blackforce.ca/accept incoming message from Salesforce. So your developer would create an API that would accept an incoming message from Salesforce. Is going to pass all these parameters into that URL. As an admin, you don't need to know how to do this. You just need to know that workflow rule can send outbound messages. Okay? In addition, let's go back to our workflow rules. When you're doing your annual check, I told you that we can send workflow actions. The first type of action we can send is immediate workflow action, meaning that anytime I create it, it's going to be automatically created. The task will be automatically created. That's what they call immediate workflow actions. But think about it. If you want, for instance, for your project, I ask you to create a new bill. Whenever you create a new bill, you can't send an email to the bill owner. How do you do that? I go back to, the account object. I'm going to create a new field on the account object called account email. Okay? Now that I've created a new field called the account email, I save. Now, what I want to do is this. I want to create the same workflow rule to send email, but instead of selecting the users in the system, I want to select an email field. Okay. Actually, I want to create my own email template. Maybe that could be the reason why the email wasn't getting sent. So let me just quickly create my own email templates. Email templates. Okay, because sometimes the email template determines, maybe the match you put in the email will determine whether the email got broken or not. Okay, I'll just say I value email templates. Okay, then I specify all folders. I'll just put in a public folder, otherwise I won't be able to see it. So I create the I value email template and I say we have I value. Okay. Then I put merge fields from the account. Is that lead, contact, account? This is lead, contacts. Okay, we have merge fields from contact and stuff. Don't worry. I want to say thank you for creating an account with us. Okay. So now I have my template, which is fine. So when I'm creating my email alerts, I want to use my template, okay? I just want to see if that's the reason why it's broken. So I value email templates, okay? So now, instead of user, remember, I want to send an automation. I want to send an automation to the person that owns this account. That's what I want to do. That's why I created an email field for the account, okay? So I'll go back to the workflow rule. I go to email field, okay? As you can see, when I selected email field, account email automatically appears. For your project, I'm going to ask you to send an email to the bill owner. How would you send an email to the bill owner? You figure it out, okay? Email field, account email that I created automatically appears. And I save. Okay, I previously had that unique name, so I'm going to just use 2, then I save. So now the first thing is we have high value customer task needs to be created. The second thing is email alert needs to be created. 2 actions under one rule. So you don't have to constantly create different rules for just one action. You can constantly add actions to that. Okay. So now that I have that, I click on done. It's active. I can try again. I expect this to work this time around, but let's see. Okay. So we don't have email yet. So I'm going to create a new premium account and I'm going to say high value 6, I guess. I don't have any requirement here. The most important thing here is annual revenue, which should be high enough to generate. Then I specify the email, okay? Salesforce developer 1960@gmail.com. Then I specify the business type. I think that's all I need. Then I save. Okay? The expectations are we should have a task because the task workflow rule is still ongoing. The details is fine, but we are getting an email as well. We have high value custom. We have high value. This is an auto response. The auto response was sent to the account owner. Remember, this guy does not have a Salesforce license. So in the workflow rules, I did not select a user. I selected email field. And I used the account email custom field that I created on the account object. This is how you send an alert to someone that is not within the Salesforce org. Okay? You also have the option of selecting role. So you can select to CEO, CFO, COO. Look at Salesforce has built this automation for you to be very flexible and you have to be very creative. You need to answer the business question. We want to send an email to a group of people. Select the role and you push the role into the recipient. To a public group, select the public group and you push the public group to the recipient. Select email field and you push the email field to the recipient. That is how you send an email alert out of the system. Let's do another action, which is updating a field. So for this example, I want to say, if website is not provided, I want to update the website to be blackforce.ca. Okay? If the website is not provided, I go to workflow rule. I said immediate action, update a field. I say update website field. Then I select the field to update. account sites, which is, no, that's not account sites. I want to update websites. So this is website, okay? Then I make sure that a blank value is null, to specify new field value. Don't worry about that. To use a formula, no, I'm okay. So now I've created a new field called update website field. I can now edit that field actually. I want to specify a particular value. I can just say, no. No, I'll just say black first. Let me see if this will work. Okay, let me just put that check syntax. It's good. So we should be able to just insert black first into the field. So it's going to update the website and make it black first. Okay, the workflow rule is still active. Then we can test. New. The website field will be empty. I value 7. Annual revenue is high enough for us, for the workflow rule to create. Then I click on save. Remember, the website field is not present. I needed to have created a criteria, I think, but let me check. Okay, so the tax, this thing trigger, but the most important thing here is we have updated the website field, meaning that anytime the action, the workflow rule kicks in, it's going to check the annual revenue and it's going to carry out this action. But one thing you might want to do is this. You can also put a condition here that says website is null. Because what if there is something in the website? What if you have a value in the website? What if you have a value in the website? You're going to be overwriting the value, okay? So for this type of workflow that requires you to update a field, you might want to take the action away from this first rule. Because if you put it along this first rule, it might be overriding the value of the website provided when you create the account. Let me give you an example. You go to new and you specify www.google.ca, okay? Premium, and you have annual revenue of 5 million. This is www.google.ca, right? You save and you go to the details. Can you see that I changed whatever you've put there to black first? So whenever you're building your workflow rule, you need to do analysis. You need to group rules together so you don't override information when you're doing your field updates. This is very important. Okay, I've spent a lot of time on immediate actions. Let's go to time-dependent actions. What are time-dependent actions when it comes to workflow rule? Time-dependent actions are actions that takes time before it gets executed. So it doesn't get executed immediately. It gets executed after a couple of time, after maybe hours or days. Okay, so what does that mean? It means if I have a workflow rule and I have a time-dependent action, before I can actually create a time-dependent action, I need to deactivate the workflow rule, okay? And I cannot create a time-dependent action whenever I select this option. So there are two things. First, you have to deactivate the workflow rule. Second, you have to select a different evaluation criteria before you can use time-dependent. So we select this, okay? Save. So I've deactivated the workflow rule, and now I want to create a time-dependent action. what are the use case of a time-dependent action? The time-dependent action could be whenever a case has been created in the system and no one has attended to that case for X number of hours, I want to escalate. I want to tell my manager. That's how to use a time-dependent action. Other use case could just be, I want to send bills to my customer 21st day of every month. So I create a bill 1st of November, but I want to send out that bill 21st day of every month. Do you guys think whenever you get a new bills in your email, the bills are not sent or triggered immediately? Sometimes there could just be an automation. Send this email 7 days before the bills get paid or before the bill's expiry date comes up. Whatever it is a business process. But you can specify the days when you want this rule to take place. I want the rule to take place 7 days after it was created. I want this rule to take place 7 hours after it was created. So let me give you an example of a time-dependent action. I'll create a new rule so we don't interfere with an existing rule. Go to new rule. The object of interest is case. I want to send a reminder to the case owner that this case was open 7 days. This case was created 7 days ago and the status is still open. So case reminder. Every time it is created and it is edited. No, every time it's created, edited, and subsequently meets criteria, because we cannot use this for time dependent, okay? So what are the criteria? I want to go to the case status. If the case status equals new, if the case status equals new, I want to send a reminder 7 days if the case status equals new. Okay? So 7 days. No, not time close, time created. Date, time close, no. Case, date, time open. Okay? You can also use last modified, but I think open will be fine. Save. Obviously, we cannot test this, okay? We cannot test this because we have to wait 7 days. But the bottom line is you have to send an action. The action will now be case reminder. Okay? Then you can select the templates from the system. Okay? Then make sure the subject says, you've already probably created that anyway in your template, so you don't get to specify that. Then you save. The bottom line is this: you can create a workflow action 7 days after you've created the record. This is what they call the time-dependent action. Okay? So remember, before we move to a different section, remember workflow rules is under process automation. And what can you do with workflow rules? You can send email alerts. You can update a field. You can send outbound messages, and you can create a new task. When you're creating a workflow rules, you have the option to select when this workflow rule gets created. And the options are when it gets created, and every time it gets edited, when it gets created, anytime it gets edited and subsequently meets criteria. You can also specify fields. For instance, you can say if the value of a field is changed, if the value of the annual revenue is changed, I want to trigger this workflow rule. So you have the liberty to automate your Salesforce org. I'm going to take a pause here right now to find out how you guys are feeling and if you guys have any questions before we go to the next section. So I'm going to call you guys, okay? Shalom, please.
Hi. So my question is, so if there was a product release and I wanted to give an update to the customers, is it possible to use an automation process on Salesforce to update my customers about that?
How would the product be released? What would initiate that? Are you entering data into the system? If yes, you can use that. So how are you going to be updating your customer? What would initiate it? What would trigger it? That's what I'm interested in. What should trigger it? What should be the trigger? Do you get my question?
I'm trying to. Let me just process it.
Yeah, if you can figure out what should trigger that email, then you can notify your customers or whoever it is. For instance, if you have an object called process or projects or products, and you load new products into that object, if there is a workflow rule on that object to send email alerts, then an email alert will be sent out because you have created new records in the objects. Remember, you need that evaluation criteria before you can do any action using workflow rule. So the evaluation criteria is created or edited, created or edited, and subsequently meet a criteria you have set. Okay?
Okay, I got that. Thank you.
Yeah. Ademola, please.
Thank you very much, Babatope. My question is about the outbound messages. Can the automation rule send an outbound message to a mobile phone, or are we just restricted to email?
Again, outbound messages is different from email. When we get to the outbound messages, I told you that you have to specify a URL, right? Whereby you communicate to an external system. So you're specifying a URL. The URL is where you're sending the outbound messages to in form of an XML file. Okay? So you don't send it to an email, you don't send it to a test, you send it to an endpoint. The endpoint, your developer will now determine what should happen in that endpoint. For instance, your developer might have created an automation to send tests, to send emails, to send whatever it is, notification, push notifications, and the likes. But Salesforce does not handle that for you. As long as you put the endpoints where you want that outbound message to go, then your developer takes charge from there. Okay?
Okay, good. That's what I want to know.
Okay. Messi, please.
Thank you, Babatope. Sorry. I was going to ask that why would I want to use an evaluation criteria of created over that of created and edited? Like, is there any reason or should there be any situation where one is preferred to the other?
That's a good question. The reason why you might want to specify whether it is created or it is edited is, one, if you create something and you already sent an email out, or you created a task, and you edit again and it creates another task, so you send another email, you could be a nuisance for that customer. That customer could say, why are you sending me an email? You already sent this email once. Why are you sending an email again? So this would help you minimize the number of actions you're creating. Created, that's it. You've sent it out.
Okay.
However, you might want to be very, very sure that the email goes out. So anytime it's edited, you might want to have it, maybe, I don't know, there could be a business justification for it. But always remember, you don't want to run into a loop. A loop in the sense that you constantly update certain fields. Let's say, for instance, you create a new field, it updates, and you already have a workflow rule that says whenever this field updates, you need to update. So you're updating field every time you create a record, like almost 5 fields get updated and it gets started all over again. That is what they call a recursive loop. And recursive loop will let you get to your governor limits. In Salesforce, you are sharing resources with other Salesforce users. And if you constantly send recursive emails, recursive loop, you're going to get blocked and you might not be able to send email out of the system. Okay? So you want to prevent that as a business analyst. And also, in addition to that, you have a limit of 1,000 emails you can send per workflow rules email alerts. You can send 2 million emails in the entire system a day. Yeah, you can send 2 million emails every day, but you can send 1,000 emails per workflow, per Salesforce license, okay? Based on email alerts. So there are limitations on all those stuffs, okay?
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. Echo, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Babatope. I just wanted to know, because I noticed there are lots of rules and then there's the need for deactivation. Now, is this just in okay, what I mean is, and also somewhere when I read, it says there should be one rule in the system. So does it conflict in any way? Let's say there was an escalation rule somewhere. Will it conflict with this? Or does one of the rules have to be deactivated for the other to be active?
No, you don't have to deactivate one rule for the other to be active. You just need to know the order of execution, which I explained to you yesterday. Order of execution is when the rule gets executed. For instance, system validation rules take place first, then custom validation rules, then duplicate rules, then assignment rules, then auto response rule. Workflow rules is the last rule that gets executed. So if you've done all this and workflow rules get executed, and let's say in your workflow rules, you said something, maybe you put a field that invalidates system validation, if that makes sense. You put a rule that breaks your custom validation. Everything gets rolled back. Everything gets rolled back. For instance, in your project, I said the start date must not be greater than the end date. Mm-hmm. Now, if your workflow rule says update the start date, if the update the start date is now greater than end date, everything gets rolled back. So your workflow would not happen. And also you should know that workflow rules does not have priority order, meaning that you don't know which of these workflow rules gets executed first. You can create a bunch of workflow rules, but you don't know which one of them gets executed first. But Salesforce says field updates get executed first, but you don't know which order they get executed. So you just have to be very careful when you're doing workflow rules. Always think before you start doing. Okay?
Okay, so in Salesforce, it suffices to say that there can be different rules, but they are dependent on each other somewhat.
It's dependent on order of execution. Okay. Order of execution. So everything will get executed, but the order which it gets executed matters. For instance, if you fill a form and there's an assignment rule in place to send an email, the assignment rule gets executed before the workflow rules. Do you get what I mean? So you get the assignment rule, then you get the workflow rule. The workflow rule is the last. It's not the last actually, but It's one, yeah, escalation rules entitled, oh, come on, guys. You have to, I think there is an acronym for order of execution, Salesforce. Some people have acronym for it, like some mnemonics and stuff. Let me see. People have stuff for it, but try to look into it. It's going to help you because it's very, especially if you want to work as a developer. As an admin, you probably don't care, but as a developer, you want to know the order of execution, because if you're doing something and it's breaking the code, then obviously you're doing a bad development. Okay, so take note of that. Okay.
All right. So this is across Salesforce generally, though.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thanks, sir.
They're at place.
Okay, thank you, Babatope. I just wanted to confirm, you mentioned something about if we are about to send, or if we are to send outbound messages, that it first has to go to the developer, right? I don't really understand what that means. If you can touch more on that. Thank you.
Outbound messages. When I say outbound messages, you can create outbound messages, but it goes to an API. An API is an endpoint that is outside of your Salesforce org. So the company would have created an endpoint to accept account number, account source, or whatever information you want to send outside of Salesforce. That's what they call outbound messages. It has nothing to do with Salesforce. Salesforce is just giving you the data you want to send to a different system. That's the purpose of the outbound messages, and you have to specify the endpoint. That's it. Salesforce requires you to specify the endpoint. Once you specify the endpoint, then you can select the details, okay? The details you want to send to the outbound message. These are the details, right? You want to send it to a different system. That's what they call the outbound message. Does this make sense?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Good, good. So I'm going to stop again. I'm going to carry on with the lesson. So now we know workflow rules. This will come out in your exam, at least 5 questions. Create and edited, create and subsequently meet criteria. Okay? Create task, update field, send outbound message, and email alerts. The next process automation is called process builder. What is a process builder? The Lightning Process Builder is an automation that is similar to workflow rules, but it is more powerful than the workflow rules because it can do more than workflow rules. Why is it more powerful than the workflow rules? Number one, the process builder helps you to do multiple checks. So if you look at the workflow rules, for instance, the thing you check is, you check if a criteria meets a condition and you do something. But what happens if it doesn't meet that criteria? You don't get to do something, right? But the process builder have multiple if-then statements, meaning that if something does not work, the next one can work. Check it. Okay? Besides that, we can create a new record with process builder. As you can see, with workflow rules, we have just 4 options. With process builder, we can do more. So let me show you what is possible with process builder. The first thing you do is you create new. You give it a process name. Just say annual revenue check. Annual revenue check. The same thing we've done for workflow rule is what we want to do for process builder, okay? Then we say, when should this process start? Remember, workflow rule, you said created, edited, and subsequently meet criteria. That's evaluation criteria, okay? And for process builder, you're saying, when should this start? You can create a new process if a record changes, a platform event message is received, or it is invoked by another process. Okay? You don't probably need to worry too much about this, but it's something you need to know that you can start a new process when a record changes, meaning that when you create a new record, when you edit a new record, or when something change on this platform, when something change, any object at all, when you change anything here, you can start a process builder. That's what it's saying, when a record change. A platform event message is received. What does that mean? There's a platform event message which is for developer. So you probably don't need to know about this, but you can start a new process when a platform event message is received. You can also start a new process if you invoke it from an existing process. Okay? So I'll show you what that means shortly. So now we have this new process builder. This is the interface of the process builder. So you can view all processes, you can clone on existing processes, you can go back to that option and edit the version of the process builder, but you probably wouldn't need this anyway. The first time you create it, that's the end of it. But if you upgrade your Salesforce org and stuff like that, you might want to change the API, but it's not really a big deal. So now let's look at what the process builder can do and why the process builder is different from the workflow rule. The first thing, remember, when we create a workflow rule, we had to select the object. Same way you have to do with process builder. You select the object of interest. You select the object of interest, account object, the same way you've done for the workflow rule. Then you now select the evaluation criteria, which is when it is created and when it is created or edited. So we don't have subsequently meet criteria in process builder, but we know that we have created, or edited. And you have the advanced stuff, which you probably wouldn't need, but you want to just prevent it for recursion, but don't worry about it for now. So we're saying when it's created and when it's created or edited. But remember, the object of interest is the key thing here. I've selected accounts, the same way I've done for workflow rules, okay? Selected accounts. Go back, the criteria. What is the criteria? The criteria is what you're checking. What are you checking? Annual revenue check. So I'm checking if the annual revenue field on the account record is greater than $1 million, greater than or equal to $1 million, okay? Or whatever, let me just make sure I got it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? The same way, but as you can see, the process builder looks more intuitive, looks more graphical. So most people don't use workflow rules anymore. It's getting obsolete. They use process builder because you can see what you're doing. It's kind of like makes it inclusive, right? Now you have this condition, you can add another condition. Then you can select when all these conditions are met or when any of these conditions is met. For instance, you can say you want to check another thing. Accounts is active. Yeah. No, don't let me choose active. Let me choose something else. I'm going to choose, just give me 1 minute. Let me look for something more logical. Okay, let's just choose website. Doesn't matter. Equals blackforce.ca.
Can we use type? Account type.
Right. There's no type there. Type. Business type. We have business type, but there is no account type. So let's use business type. Don't worry. business type equals premium. Okay. So now we're checking annual check or business type. Okay. So you have to specify that, although you don't have to specify the way I've done it, because this is just a way to easily identify your criteria. Okay. This just come up. Sorry. Okay, so I click on save. So this is a criteria, annual revenue check or business. Remember, for workflow rules, I'm just switching between workflow rules so I can show you the difference. Workflow rules, you just specify the field and that's it. You don't know what should happen if not. But for process builder, you have the true part and you have the false part, meaning that if this is not true, then go to this place. So what action should take place? This is a very important question that differentiates whether you use a workflow rule or a process builder. The first thing is you can create an Apex class. Don't worry about what Apex class is, but know that you can call an Apex class. You can create a record. This is a key thing, and this is the reason why most people use Process Builder. In your exam, you will see about 5 questions under this. The difference between workflow rules, the primary difference between the workflow rules and Process Builder is with workflow rules, you cannot create a new record. With Process Builder, you can create a new record. You can send an email alert in both process automation. Workflow rule, you can send email alert. Process Builder, you can send email alert. You can call a flow. You can post to chatter. You can call a process. Remember, I told you, you can invoke a process. This is what it means to invoke a process. You're calling another process. You can do a quick action. Remember what I call quick action? It's quick action, like the global action, and you also have the quick action as well. When you go to a particular object, you can see some quick action there, right? Task, new, log, and email, and stuff like that. Those are quick actions. Then you can submit for approval. You can update records. So can you see that you have more options? The only thing you cannot do with a process builder that you can do with a workflow rule is send outbound messages. With workflow rule, you can send outbound messages. With process builder, you cannot send outbound messages. Remember this. In your exam, they will ask you, the manager has requested you to send an outbound message to an external system. What process automation should you use? A workflow rule or a process builder? Use workflow rules to send outbound messages. Select process builder if it says create a record. You cannot create a record with workflow rules. Okay? I've overemphasized it, but it's important I let you guys know. Create a record. So I'm saying whenever an annual check is greater than or equal to $1 million, I want to create a record. Then I say create new opportunity. Okay. Then I specify the record type is opportunity, right? The object, sorry. The object of interest is opportunity. Then you have pre-made fields and stuff like that. You don't have to, you have to specify the close date if you want, the name, stage, prospecting, currency, card, forecast category, pipeline. Just 1 minute. I selected the account, right? So why is it forcing me to create a close date? But let me just put a close date there. The close date, I'll just put created date. This is just for testing, okay? Then I'll just say the name. What should the name be? Let me use something from the account, okay? I will say that, okay? Now I save. So I'm saying whenever the annual revenue is greater than or equal to $1 million, I want to create a new opportunity record. And I have the option the same way I have for workflow rules, immediate action or time-dependent action. For instance, I can create new opportunities 7 days after the record was created, or I can just ignore this field. So now, if the annual revenue is not greater than or equal to $1 million, what should I do? False. This is the false. Then I want to do something else. That's the benefit of process builder over workflow rule. You can determine what should happen if it is true, what should happen if it is false. For instance, I will say create lead record, create check. So this is where this comes in, right? Okay, before I complicate things, let's save this and test it, okay? I activate the process builder. You need to activate the process builder before you can start using it. So you confirm and it's active. So remember the criteria is $1 million or account business type is premium. I'm going to go back, refresh this to make sure that it's kicked in. I go to new. I go to sample opportunity from, sample account from process builder. So the opportunity name will be like this, okay? Because I'm using the account name in the new opportunity that is being created. But remember, the criteria is annual revenue. Okay, so I think that's enough, 50 million, that's fine. Then I click on save. But remember, our workflow rule is still in process. Did I deactivate something? Maybe I deactivated that workflow rule. But again, okay, this is created. Now let's go to our opportunity. And I go to this. Can you see this? This is sample accounts. Sample account from process builder. I did not create this from the opportunity. It was created because of this process builder. Remember, the action is to create opportunities and the name of the opportunity is from the account name. This is sample account from process builder opportunity, which was created as a result of creating a new account that matches the criteria of $1 million and above. So let me come back again and explain this. The first thing you do is you select the object of interest. The object of interest is where you are checking what should happen when things happen on this object. This is the object of interest. The second thing is to create a criteria. Okay, in the account object of interest, what should I be looking for me to create an opportunity? I am looking for a situation where the annual revenue is greater than or equal to $1 million. So anytime I'm in the account objects and I'm creating a new account where the annual revenue is greater than $1 million, I want to do what? Create an automation for opportunity objects. I want to create a new record automatically. That's what the process automation is all about. I'm giving you a very basic example of process automation, but some people write complex process automation. As an admin, you wouldn't have to do this, but for your exam, you need to know it. You need to know what this is for your exam. But if you're an admin, you don't have to do it on a daily basis. The only thing you do on a daily basis is reports, user creation, and profile updates. But you need to know this to pass your certification exam. You need to know the difference between workflow rules and process builder. So now this is an example of creating a record. You can also remember, you can update a field. You can send an email alert. So now that you've activated this workflow rule, you cannot make changes to this workflow rule again. So let's say you want to make changes to this workflow rule. You have to clone it. And you have to either create a new version of the current process, sorry, I said workflow rule, process builder. You have to create a new version of the process builder, or you create a new process entirely. So remember, whenever you've created your first process builder and you've activated it, you have to clone in order to make changes. So we want to make another changes to this. If this annual revenue check is not greater than or equal to $1 million, okay, let's check for something else. So opportunity will not be created, but I want to check for the business type. And I want to see if the business type is premium. So now you do the first check. Now you're doing the second check. So if the business type, check business type. So if the business type equals premium, I want to do something. As you can see, it's growing. It always gives you that opportunity to always check. That's why I said process builder is multiple if statements. Workflow is just one criteria check and that's it. There is no alternative. There is no if else. It's just if this means this, do this. Otherwise, stop. Process builder, you can constantly check, check, check until something is met. Then you carry out action. Now I'm saying if the annual revenue is not greater than $1 million, I want to check the business type. So is the business type, if the business type equals premium, I want to do something. What should I do? Send email alerts. Send an email to someone. Okay, then I select the email alert. I need to use the email template. Okay, I can either create one, just use this. I don't need to create, I can just use this, okay? Then I use that, okay? Or let's just type it. Okay, save. So now it's gonna check for $1 million. If not, goes to business type and check. If not, go to another type and check or stop. That is process builder, activate, continue. So now I'm going back to my org. I go to the account object. I go to new. I will make sure that my business type is premium, but my revenue is 100. So it's not going to create opportunity. No opportunity should create. Okay? But I should be able to get an email to salesforce.developer1960@gmail.com. Okay, then I save. So now I don't expect any opportunity to be created. Okay, because the criteria for creating opportunity is not met. However, I'm expecting an email to be sent out, okay? Because the criteria for email is met, okay? And this was sent 0 minutes ago, okay? So that's the benefits of Process Builder. One other benefit of Process Builder is you can relate to any objects. Processes are defined related to one standard or custom objects. You can't go and talk to from accounts object that you selected. You can create opportunities. You can create contacts. You can create cases. But for workflow rule, you're limited to the object you've selected. Workflow rule restricts you to the object you have selected. So if something is not related to that object, you cannot deal with it using workflow rules. Okay? So you need to understand the differences between the process builder and the workflow rules. And always remember, you have to activate it once you've done. If you don't activate the workflow, the process builder, even the workflow rule, it's not going to be executed. So just to take a step back, if we want to create a process builder, we go to the quick find, we type in process builder, we create new process builder. But remember, when we clone existing process builder, the old one gets inactive and you can delete it. But the new one gets active, okay? We go to new, we give it a name, whatever name we want. We select how this process should start. This is very important. Then you select the object of interest. You define that object of interest. After selecting the object of interest, you then specify, account already has, yeah, don't worry, you can always, like, it's not a big deal if it already has a process in place. You can have multiple processes per object, okay? However, it's always good to think carefully before creating processes, before you start creating recursive loop, okay? So always remember that. And you can determine the criteria. So the criteria meaning that I want annual revenue to be greater than or equal to 1 million. I want this to be this and that. So I'm going to take a pause here and find out from you guys if you get it. Because if you don't get it, you're going to struggle with Salesforce going forward. I don't mean as an admin, but this is the future of Salesforce. Automation, declarative. If you get what we're doing tonight, you're a good candidate for Salesforce consultant. If you don't get it, you will struggle as a Salesforce consultant. So I'm going to take a pause to find out what you guys think and if you have any questions. Okay, I'll start with Doris.
So I'm just wondering, does Salesforce use some kind of forms to like do workflows or process builder or no?
What do you mean?
So there are some systems that would use like a form, like maybe let's say in an organization, there's a new hire and the new hire fills the new hire form, and then you have to create a workflow for that. So does Salesforce do something like that?
It depends on what you mean. Where would the new hire fill the form? I've given you so many options to get data into Salesforce and out of Salesforce. So for instance, if the new hire goes to, let's say, blackforce.ca, and the new hire goes to register, they fill a form. I've shown you how the form goes into Salesforce, right? Mm-hmm. The form goes into Salesforce, then you can build automation on the objects which you're saving this form into. Do you get what I mean? So automation will now go maybe on the lead object, on the contact object, and you execute process builder automation behind the scene. Do you get what I mean?
Okay, so let's say they fill out the form, and then you save that the details of the form in maybe the lead object. So when I start the process builder, the first the object I would select will be lead, right? So where you selected account, it would be lead.
Yes.
And does workflow ever work automatically, or someone has to always come in and create the process, like build the process and create it based on what is on the what is filled into the system? Like, does it work automatically, or someone has to always do the process, like do the process flow?
The entire message of process automation is automation. The keyword is automation. So it works automatically. No one gets to do anything. Whenever record gets into the lead object, the process kicks in. When it is created, and every time it is edited, created and anytime it's edited to subsequently meet criteria. So it's automated process. It's an automated process, sorry.
Yeah, but the part where you have to do the process builder, so when do we actually get to do that? Like, if it's automated and we already set everything like this, created and every time it's edited and whatnot, when do we actually have to use the process builder and put all the action into place?
That's the first time you're setting it up. You set up the process builder and you let it do its work. So it's automated after you set it up and you activate the process builder. Do you get?
So it's a one-time thing?
Yeah, it's a one-time activity to set up the process builder. After that, everything starts working without your involvement.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's the process of automation. That's what we're learning right now. So it's very important you know this, because this could be your first project at work. Automate our form such that we don't have to manually create a new task whenever we have a new customer in the system. We automatically assign a task whenever the criteria is from web. This is process automation. And you've seen how workflow rules and process builder does the automation. Then you can now think about other business logic criteria you need to use. Because if you don't know what you're doing, what are you automating? You need to know what you're doing before you start automating. Some things do not require automation, right? But know what you're automating before you start building. Okay? Eckhart, please.
Thank you, Babatope. Just to know, for the process builder, do you actually, because you made mention of it, that you can create other fields. Now, I just want to know, are these related fields or they can be independent fields at once?
Process builder, they can be, so let's say we want to choose updates, okay? Mm-hmm. I want to update a field. Okay, I'm going to say criteria. I don't even have criteria. I will save. Oh, sorry. Let's say name. Name contains manifest. Okay. So you're just looking for manifest, right? Now, that's not even I want to select updates. Okay. You can select update on account records that started your process, or select records that are related to the account object.
Okay.
Do you understand? So you could be going to cases because cases is related to account objects, right? Yeah. You could be going to opportunities. You could be going to contacts.
Okay.
And can you see the benefit of process builder? Unlike workflow, you don't get an opportunity.
Okay. So basically the objects have to be related anyways.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, not to jump the gun though. The process flow and the process builder now. Now, I just want to know if what I understand is correct. So, the process builder is to update or edit records. What the process flow is it to create such records itself or object itself,
don't get records and object confusing, okay? Object is defined outside of automation.
Okay.
Records is what you put in the object. Okay. So when you create a record in an object.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can select whatever object you want, and it doesn't have to do with accounts. That's the benefit of Process Builder. You start with accounts, but the action could be something unrelated to accounts. Okay. So you can create updates, anything in opportunity, in send email alerts. It has nothing to do with the account objects. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
No worries. Adewale, please. Adewale.
Thank you very much, Babatope. I find this automation process quite interesting, especially because I see the difference between workflow process and the process builder. Now, the process builder looks quite interactive, and that's the beauty of it. Now, you saying how important this is going into the future as a consultant, do we have, are you able to, give us tests on this, series of tests on this, so that we can actually use that to reinforce the knowledge? Because trust me, the project you have given us is an eye-opener. It's helped us a great deal. And if you can have, if you can have, not necessarily big projects, but, little assignments on this particular area, then I think that's going to help us even in our, small cells, small groups, right? That's just that's my simple ask.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. You will get projects. You guys are in a hurry, but trust me, there's
not big project or not big.
The next project I'm going to give you, I'm not going to break it down for you guys. Then you guys will now see what it means to think like a consultant.
Yeah, because one thing I found out in all this is this: you must be you must be solving a problem. If you're not solving a problem, you don't even know how to set up your criteria. What are you looking for? What are you trying to achieve? Is what's going to basically lead you into, setting it up properly.
Yes. So next project, you probably wouldn't have a lot of details as the first one, because the first one looks easy. Unfortunately, some people were still struggling with it, but it's easy. Okay. So this is what you could possibly get in your next project. That's all. Then you now start thinking. Okay.
You can as well make this a group project so that we can think together.
That's why I put you guys into groups anyway. So don't let us discuss that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Conversation that. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So let me give you possible scenarios, and you're going to tell me what tools you would use to solve this, or how would you do it? Okay. Question 1. You are a contract manager. Your contract manager wants to be alerted 30 days prior to the end of a contract. They want both emails alert and a task to be created. How would you solve this for your contract manager?
I use the workflow and set it up.
I want someone to speak and walk me through how to solve this. Remember, to be alerted 30 days prior to the end of contracts, and they want an email and a task to be created. Someone should speak. One person, please. Raise your hand up and speak. Okay. Okay, Embo, please.
Okay, I'll say it's a time-dependent workflow rule that you would use.
That's what I'm looking for. That's it. Time-dependent workflow rule. Okay? It's not just immediate action workflow rule, but time-dependent workflow rule. Number 2, when opportunity is closed won, the amount needs to be sent to an external financial system to create a billing for that opportunity. How would you solve this? Raise your hand to speak. Kutman.
I think it should be workflow for outbound messages.
That's good. Well done. Well done. That's what I'm looking for. Outbound message, because you're relating with an external system. Your manager wish to be alerted whenever an opportunity is set to renegotiation so they can assist their team. How would you solve this? Vinita.
Could you repeat?
Well, workflow rule.
Yeah, but I want something. Walk me through. How would you set this? Manager wish to be alerted anytime an opportunity is set to renegotiation, anytime. Tell me.
We will create an email.
Sorry?
We will create an email.
The workflow rule is what I'm looking for, not the action. The workflow rule. How would you trigger this?
So use evaluation criteria created and every time is edited option.
Yes, that's it. Okay. You need to know what you're doing. What are you doing? I said every time something happens, I want to get an alert every time. So you need to subsequently ensure that whenever the criteria is met, you are triggering this workflow rule. Okay. So this question, when an opportunity is closed won, a new project should be created. Users have been doing this manually, but they want this automated. How would you do it? Emma, please.
Yeah, so you do this using what's it called again? Crap. Just not workflow, the other one, just the process builder. Process builder. Sorry. I just skipped my mind. Yeah, process builder. That's what we use.
Okay, that's good.
Because
yeah, it's okay. As long as you know that it's a process builder. Because of why are you choosing process builder? Emma, why are you choosing process builder?
Because we're going to create a record, the process, because we're creating a project. Good. That's why, yeah. Unlike the other one, we cannot create a record with workflow.
Okay, another scenario. I want to submit an opportunity for approval automatically whenever an amount is over $1 million. I want to submit an opportunity.
Please repeat the question.
Okay. I want to submit an opportunity for approval whenever an amount is greater than $1 million.
So you use the workflow when the criteria is met.
Mail alert, workflow rule.
So I think you can use both.
I want to submit for approval.
Use the process.
Approval is an action.
You can use process builder with the approval option.
Okay, look at the screen. Look at the screen. Submit for approval is an action on process builder. Always think about it from limitation. Start with limitation, okay? Start with limitation. Workflow rule, what can workflow rule? What can the workflow rules action? Update a field, send email alerts, create a new task, and send outbound messages. So if it is not there, just eliminate workflow rules and go to process builder, or you can go to flow, okay? Don't neglect flow. We haven't done flow. We're going to do flow next week, but don't neglect flow. There's also another process automation called flow, which is more powerful than process builder and workflow rule. That will take a whole session, and we need to learn that as well, okay? And the last one for tonight, let me see. An administrator has created an email template using the Lightning email template builder. When the opportunity record is created by the sales rep, an email alert should be sent to their manager using the email template. What should you use?
Workflow rules.
Well, it sounds like
Workflow rules.
Raise your hand up, please. Shalom, please. Raise your hand up if you want to speak. Shalom, please.
It would be the workflow rule, but I also think you can use the PB if I'm not.
What's PB? Process builder?
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
can you do the drop down as well? Yeah, I should be there.
Yeah, you shouldn't be guessing. You should be very confident about this. You can use either of the two because they can both send email alerts, and Workflow can send email alerts and Process Builder can send email alerts. Okay, I think we're good. Everyone seems to know what they're doing or what I've said so far. You just need to. I think this question is over. Okay, maybe when you get the project, you can determine what to use. Okay, I'll give you the project, then you determine what to do based on the skills you have. Okay, I think we're good. Do you guys have any questions outside of the? I'm going to ask Bamizoko.
Okay, thank you very much, Babatope. I just wanted to talk about the process builder. I'm looking now. I want to look into the comparison between the process builder and the workflow rule. I think from what you said this evening, I think the process builder is more robust. But then I want to look at a limitation it has, which has to do with its inability to send out, outbound messages. So I wanted to know, has Salesforce been able to do something about this limitation?
It's not up to me. I'm only here to teach you. Then Salesforce will update their system whenever they feel like, but we haven't done Flow. Flow is more powerful than workflow rules and process builder. So let's do Flow, and you can determine why you use certain things. It's very subjective to the business question. If workflow rule can solve your problem in 2 minutes, why would you want to create process builder? So you determine based on the business requirement, but always use the easiest tool to solve a problem. Okay.
I'm curious because from all you said not what you said per se. I think you said more people or many people now use the process builder instead of the workflow rules because of the diagrammatic nature of it. So I was wondering if lots of people use it. Maybe there could be a way around sending out outbound messages or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but again, that's business. Let me tell you something. Sometimes it's very hard to change. And if you've already used workflow rules to create thousands of outbound messages, you don't want to change that process. And if you can find a way around using Process Builder to send outbound messages, perhaps you can. But again, you can use Apex. I can use Apex to do this as well. But Apex needs a developer to write the Apex class. Then within that Apex, you can call an API. Okay, that's another way around it. But then again, we're not teaching developers class right now. We're teaching Salesforce admin. So I cannot introduce that to you guys. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Emo, do you have a question?
Yes, please. Can you just explain again the difference between the workflow process for difference between when it is created to meet a criteria and every time it is created and subsequently edited, just the difference between the two, because that's a bit confusing for me, to be honest.
So when you're creating a record, when you
created, that one is fine. Is it the other two, created and every time it's edited, or created and every time it's edited to meet its criteria?
So created and every time it's edited is this. I go to an opportunity. I go to an account. I said, whenever the account is over $1 million, I want to create a new task. Okay, when I create the account. When I edit the account and I save, I should still create a new task. Okay? So every time it's created and edited, it's going to be creating a new task.
So whether or not we miss that threshold, it will just still create a task, basically.
So that's what it's saying. Whenever it's created and edited. Whereas for this, every time it's created and subsequently meets criteria. So if previously it was $100 and now it's 100 million, it's going to create a new task. That's what it's saying.
Okay, so in this case, if it is created and it's $1 million, you get it. And if it is created before and it was $100, you won't get it. But when it now becomes $1 million, you will get it.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, it's you just have to try it. You just have to go into the org and try to just play around with it, and you will get it. It's very, I know it can be very tricky, right? But trust me, it's very straightforward. Yeah, just try it, okay? And if you want me to give you an example, I can give you an example, right? So for instance, the first time, whenever an opportunity is created and the sales manager of the sales rep says, okay, I want to be notified by email. That's it. The next time you edit it, the email will not go. But the next one is, okay, I want it to be created and every time it's edited. The rule will fire when a record is created and every time the record is updated, as long as the record meets the criteria. Okay, so for instance, if you have an opportunity that has a value that is $20,000 and you will get an email. Okay, maybe you have a criteria that says send an email. But if the opportunity is created with a value $30,000, then it's going to send an email, right? But if later the opportunity is recorded and it's updated, because it's changed, the rule will be reevaluated. And because the value is still $30,000, it's going to send an email. Okay? So there's like a very similarity between this and this. The only thing there is that this might not have time-dependent workflow action, but this has time-dependent workflow action. So just kind of like know the difference between this and this. This, you always reevaluate. But one, you check whether it meets the criteria, you send. If it doesn't meet the criteria, you don't send. But this, you get to use, you don't get to use a time-dependent action. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Babatope, I have a question.
Thank you.
What's that?
I have a question, actually. This is me. And creating task is one of the actions you need to undertake for workflows. And without not looking at Salesforce now, right? Common sense wise, if you are creating a task, I think it should be assigned to someone or a user, or whatever. But I don't know, maybe I missed that, but I was hoping to see that in creating the task, there'll be something like assigned to this user or something. I don't know if I missed that.
It's there. When we're creating the workflow action, we select new task and there's assigned to.
Okay. Okay. To be sure.
Yeah, that's fine. So Emo, just to reiterate, the last time you check when it's edited, okay? That means if it's still 30,000 or if the criteria is still $1 million, it's going to send out that email. Okay? And you can put a condition whereby it's changed, something like that. If the value hasn't changed, then it will send that email. You get? But for this one, the only difference is time-dependent workflow. You cannot do it with this, but this you can do time-dependent workflow. Okay? Isaac, please.
Good evening, Mr. Babatope. Now you said in your teaching that workflow is not been like used anymore, it's been like outdated. Now, is there like some companies out there that just stick to this process builder and don't use workflow no more?
Possibly, right? But at the end of the day, for instance, let's say RBC have rigid process in place before they can change anything, before they can move from workflow to flow. they have to create a project for it. Okay? So in as much as workflow is outdated, some people are still using it, just like Classic. Classic is outdated, but if you go to most of the banks, that's what they're using, Classic. So it's very hard to change. Even though it's outdated, it's still very active, okay? So, so always have at the back of your mind, no skill is gonna be absolutely obsolete unless you're like 20 years and you're still learning that skill, maybe, but it's still gonna be very useful, okay? But the concept is what you need to know. And obviously for your exam, you need to know it so you can pass it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's all from everyone, and that's all from me as well. Thank you for your time. I do hope you have a very good weekend. There is no class on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So spend some time on what we've learned and probably try some trailhead as well so you can learn one or two things. I'm going to see you guys on Monday. Erica, do you want to have a question? Do you want to ask a question before we end?
No, we can talk after. Thanks.
Okay, good. Take care of yourself and have a good weekend. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.